Hello everyone and welcome back to Leadnap Gaming. Today we're back in the verse. It's been a 10-month break, which was unintentional, though it's provided an interesting opportunity to see the project that is Star Citizen from a different angle. I had left the verse at the launch of 3.18, initially because I was trapped in Area 18 by the trams not working, and concierge support was unable to do anything about it. However, after a few weeks of dealing with that, an easy anti-cheat change became blocked in my firewall, and because I work from home, this was a death blow. Thankfully, for IAE, not only has EAC fixed that they were deploying, but I had a new opportunity to set my starting location where CIG's failure to solve transit problems wouldn't trap me again. 10 months out of the verse, and I have to say that my initial impression is positive. I took some massive performance hits with the shaders being rebuilt, but I also was determined to record the actual return to the verse, so my apologies if the performance issues show up in film here. So right away, it was apparent that some of the core inventory issues were not worked out. But one major change I did really like was that all my ships were not automatically spawned on location. This was a huge change. I will, however, take this moment to include my buddy Dark's call for CIG to add filtering to the spawn menu, because if you have a lot of ships, this isn't a great experience. The IAE floors look nice this year, though there are some sound issues.
I love going to shows like
seeing it in person is a lot different than I imagined.
I like the new control helper here on screen, though it doesn't always intuitively have the commands I would want to have up. Of course, there were also a number of new ships, and we'll talk about those in just a minute. So coming back after 10 months, what were my impressions overall? Mixed. You can really see some modifications and changes, some quality of life things like lifts being damn near instant, the UI improvements, and look, there's some jump points. But also disappointment. Look, there's some jump points, but they don't do anything still. The star map is still borked, and for 100 awesome things, there isn't really anything new from 10 months ago. To be fair, I left as the last major wave of new dropped in, and we're on the cusp of when the next new usually drops. But this spells concern, especially with the Squadron 42 announcement, that CIG hasn't really changed in a year. Again, I have to be fair, I didn't partake in the opportunity to visit Pyro, which does indicate CIG has been working hard on delivering that promise. I understand and support the decision to drive Squadron 42 over the feature finish line, but what CIG's definition of feature complete is, and the reality of that translating to features quickly flowing to the PU, still firmly sits in the doubtful camp of anytime soon. It's a topic for another day, but I also wonder about the real viability of single-player Squadron 42 as a hit following Starfield, especially when speaking financially about the Star Citizen project as a whole, which also firmly relates to new ships. And about those new ships, let's start with the IAE new starter, the alien, well, I can't repeat the nicknames I've heard for it, but the Sulin, whatever you want to call it. CIG really knocked it out of the park, other than the name, as far as what they fit inside of it compared to its actual size. The sink or toilet, depending on species, is a interesting choice. This thing is packed with details and animations which reflect the amazing talent that CIG has developed in shipbuilding. Keep a pin in that for later. Of course, the core problem I have with the ship is its utilization. This isn't to say that the idea of how you sit and pilot it isn't magnificent, because it actually makes a ton of sense in a spaceship, especially with this size and configuration, if you think about it. But the way the verse is constructed, this is a horrible choice. With this ship, CIG should have unveiled a UI component we've begged for years to have. A landing camera, or UI that helps you line up and land manually. For new players entering the verse, if this is how you learn to take off and land, rage quitting's understandable. Especially if you're leaving somewhere like Microtech, where small hangars you enter and exit horizontally, making manually landing this thing a real challenge. Probably why, when I did land this there, I got a capital ship hangar instead. which was a fun run to the elevators. Sure, many newbies will just hold N to autoland, but the verse isn't designed for small ships with this flight orientation. That said, I'm told it's a solid performer in early bounties, and it has everything a starter should have. The price on this is magnificent too, a quality LTI token for those shopping for one, a good starting point for new players. I've decided to go ahead and give one away, so comment below and be subscribed for a chance to win one. I'll announce a winner while the IAE sales are still up, so if you want to use it as a token, you can. Next up is the Spirits, the C1 and A1. I'll admit I forgot I got an A1 loaner for my E1, and was a little puzzled I have one to check out. I get the arguments on paper. The C1 isn't great, but I beg to differ. It's basically a beefed up Avenger. Crusader. I love it. The Avenger was one of my first ships and I loved the layout. So to get the same thing but with more puts a big smile on my face. The ease of entry, flight mechanics, overall feel make this a quality daily flyer about the verse. Its weaknesses in DPS and protection can be mitigated by your individual skills to a point that I don't really see it any less or more effective than its peers in class off paper. The remote tractor beam turret is potentially the most useful in game, thus far, and the 64 SCU that comes with it is nothing to shake your head at. Speaking of tractor beams, the addition of the SRV to the game is cool, though I'm not convinced yet of the value today. Eventually, the SRV is definitely going to be worth it, and the ship came out well. I purchased one on concept sale and I melted it a while back. I rented it, I checked it out, I just am not moved to spend the money to put it back in my hangar. Less or so about the SRV and more about the Spirit, what is a positive is that we are roughly seeing an implied concept today, flyable by this time next year sort of deal. That makes the RSI concept yet to be announced at the time of this recording a possible stronger buy, though the galaxy is still unseen. Which of course is a disappointment of sorts. The argument on delays of certain ships has been the need to implement ships in Squadron 42 first, which to me would fall under a feature. This means because RSI ships like the Polaris are supposed to be heavily featured in the game, we should be seeing strong RSI products this IAE. Whatever this medium minor from RSI turns out to be, certainly it's related to that RSI work done for Squadron, but it's unlikely to be flyable right away. I do hope that it represents a Tier 2 mining game loot platform developer that hopefully next year puts fresh air into mining. All the new ships released in the last year show off the impressive prowess of CIG's art teams in building ships. The Polaris is one of my favorite ships of all time, and while I can't wait to fly it, I'm happy to wait and ensure that it doesn't become a Carrack, a ship that was supposed to have so much promise that is frankly obsolete now, compared to the details and features ships like the Corsair have. Which brings me to my closing point. The Squadron 42 announcement left me in high hopes that this IAE, we would see more concept ships released to flyable over new concepts. It looks like it'll be 50-50. The Spirit and SRV concepts are now flyable. The RSI ship in Seulin, new. That's an average to be happy about for sure, but a Perseus would have made the event for me. Thank you all for your support during this long hiatus. More DCS content to come as well, and for those wondering, Jet the dog is improving in health, which will hopefully continue. Make sure to share this with your friends, comment and subscribe, because that Seulin is being given away, and I will catch you all next time.